Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my BookTube channel. For today's video, I'll be talking about the books that are at the very top of my wish list. And it was actually really hard to pick just 10, and I feel like my wish list just keeps on growing every time I watch a BookTube video or I go on Book Talk, anything. I feel like it just keeps growing and growing. So it's really hard to narrow it down, but I tried to pick the ones that I currently really want to get my hands on. So let's just jump into it. Just so you guys know, these are in no particular order. These are just, my top ones, and I just ordered them in the order that I thought of them. And also, obviously I don't have them, so I will pop a picture up on the screen for you guys so you could see what it looks like. But this first one I want to talk about is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. And this is a fantasy romance about Hades and Persephone. And I love mythology retellings. And Hades and Persephone are actually some of my favorite people in mythology to read about. So I am very excited for this book. I've been seeing it all over the book community, and I really need to get my hands on it. So in this book, Persephone is the goddess of spring, and she is disguised as a mortal journalist. And since she was young, flowers have actually shriveled at her touch. And then we also have Hades, who is the god of the dead, and he has a gambling empire in the mortal world. There is a chance encounter that results in a contract where Persephone must create life in the underworld or she will lose her freedom forever. Everything about this book sounds like it's right up my alley. We have Hades and Persephone, and we also have somebody who's supposed to be the good girl and the bad boy, which is one of my favorite things in romance novels. And then the fact that they both have different jobs in the mortal world, but all of the contract is supposed to take place in the underworld. And I love that Persephone's powers are kind of a mess, and she is supposed to be the goddess of spring and be able to make things bloom and make things beautiful, but flowers have always shriveled at her touch. And that is such an interesting concept, and I feel like I've heard really good things about this book, so that makes me want it even more. But it sounds so good, and I really need it. This next one is one of the only books I ever hear recommended when somebody asks for a book similar to Caraval, so that's really why I have this on my wish list. But that book is Where Dreams Descend by Janella Angelis. In this book, we have a group of magicians facing off in a daring game of magical feats. And these magicians are trying to become the next headliner of the Conquering Circus. As the acts become more and more risky, the number of missing magicians piles up, and 3 of them are forced to face their secrets before the darkness comes for them too. Like I said, this is a book I always hear recommended when people ask for books similar to Caraval, and you probably know by now that Caraval by Stephanie Garber is one of my favorite series, and I actually just reread it in May. So it's one that I've been really into recently as well, and I would love to find another book that gives me that feel of magic in the air and gives me similar vibes. So I am really excited to hopefully get my hands on this one soon as well. This next one is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim, and this is pitched as Project Runway meets Mulan. And the whole reason this is at the top of my wish list is because the sequel, Unravel the Dusk, just came out recently, and it makes me want to read this one even more. This is one I've already considered buying recently, so the sequel coming out just pushed it further up my wish list, and I'm very excited about this one. In Spin the Dawn, a young girl poses as a boy to compete to be the Imperial Tailor. She embarks on an impossible journey to sew 3 magical dresses from the moon, the sun, and the stars. This book has elements of Chinese culture, forbidden romance, and magic, and that sounds amazing. I've been reading a few books recently that incorporate other cultures that I usually don't read about or experience, and so that's something I've been really interested in. I love learning more about other cultures, so that aspect is really exciting to me. Forbidden romance is such a cool romance trope, and that sounds absolutely amazing, and I am definitely always a sucker for books with magic. So it combines some of my favorite elements, and also the cover is stunning, and it's a very, like, I wouldn't say it's a very hyped up series, but I've definitely heard only good things about it. So it just sounds really great. The next one I'm excited to read is 1,000 Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. And I actually don't know too much about this one. All I know is that it is a standalone young adult romance. And the main reason this is on my wish list is because one of my favorite booktubers, Steph Bower, I hope that's how you say her last name. I will try to remember to link her channel below, but she reads a lot of really great romances, and there's a good chunk of the books on this list that I found out about from her channel, and this is one of them, and she loves this book. And also, a lot of people I've seen talk about this one have said that it has made them cry. And I am just looking for books to make me cry because not a lot of books have been able to do that. There's just been one that's made me cry physical tears. So I've been really trying to find some, and this is one of the ones that make a lot of people cry. So I'm really hoping it will do the same for me. That sounds kind of messed up to want books to make me cry, but I don't know. As a reader, I feel like you guys would understand. Up next, we have Love and Olives by Jenna Evans Welch. And this is the third book in that series, and they're all companion novels. I actually have the first two, Love and Olives and Love and Gelato, and I really enjoyed both of them. They're very like wanderlustful reads. They're super adorable and meaningful and very charming, and they're just perfect like spring summer reads. So I'm really hoping to get to this one during summertime. So Love and Olives specifically, like I said, is another wanderlustful read, and this one takes place in Santorini, Greece. Our main character, Liv's father, ended up fleeing to Greece when she was 8 years old, but she suddenly gets a postcard from him. And this postcard says that National Geographic is doing a documentary on his theories on Atlantis and would like to know if Liv will fly to Greece to help him. While she's in Greece, Liv learns that her father might not just have invited her there for Atlantis, but also for something much more important. And I've been wanting to get my hands on this one for a while, and the only reason I haven't purchased it already is because it came out in hardcover and I have the first two in paperback, so I'm trying to wait for this one to come out in paperback as well, and I think that's supposed to be very, very soon. So I'll definitely pick this up right when it comes out in paperback, but Jenna Evans Welch does a great job of writing these stories that make you feel like you're traveling the world, and they're so charming and adorable and sweet and everything you look for in a spring or summer book. The romances are usually adorable, and it's really great because the characters sometimes do some like touristy things, but usually they do a lot of things that only locals would know about if they lived in these other countries. And so as somebody who wants to travel a lot, I think that's really cool, and it, kind of gives me things to think about if I were to travel to these countries, and that's just so fun. Up next is another one I am super excited to read, and that is A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. I feel like I've recently heard a lot of amazing things about Elise Kova's work, and A Deal with the Elf King is really the first one of her books that I've heard about, but she apparently has a good amount of other books out as well. And I am so excited to read this one. I've seen it all over the book community, and every time I see it, it just makes me want to pick it up more and more. So in this book, the elves come for two things: war and wives. Before I say more, I don't know how to pronounce the main character's name. I don't know if it's Luella or Luella's. I'm going to say Luella's and hope that it's right, but sorry in advance if I don't pronounce it correctly. For centuries, the elves have taken a young woman from Luella's village to be their human queen. Luella has kind of managed to avoid it so far, and she's 19 now, so she thinks it's safe, but one day the Elf King shows up at her door unexpectedly for her. Luella is taken to a land filled with wild magic and forced to be the queen with the cold yet handsome Elf King. I love everything about this. I think a book about elves is so cool, and it's really interesting about the historical element that they've been coming for centuries to take a young woman to be their human queen. I think that dynamic is really interesting, and I'm excited to learn more about that. And I also love the idea of her thinking she's safe and the Elf King being like, nope, you're mine, come with me. and she's just kind of thrust into this land of magic and has to figure out how to be queen, and she has to figure out how to spend time with this elf king who's like super cold and probably mean and brutal, but then also really handsome, and that's like everything I want in a fantasy romance. So I am very excited for this one. I feel like I keep saying that for all of them, but of course I'm excited. These are at the top of my wish list. This next one is another one I've heard about from Steph Bower, and one that I really don't know too much about, but I really trust her opinion, and that is The Deal by Elle Kennedy. And that is book 1 in the Off-Campus series, which I think is one of Steph's favorite series, and she's definitely convinced me to start this one. The only other thing I know about this book is that it's a hockey romance, and I love romances that incorporate sports. I love sports, and I've never read one that incorporates hockey, so I'm really intrigued to see how this one goes. So fun fact, I only have 9 books on this list, but that is okay because I do not need to buy 10 books. 9 is perfectly fine. But this next one is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. And this one has been on my wish list for a very long time. I know there's at least 2 more books out in the series, I think. So I am very far behind, but ever since I first saw this one in stores, it definitely piqued my interest, and it's still something I'm really excited to get my hands on one day. So in this book, we have a billionaire, Tobias Hawthorne, who dies and leaves Avery virtually his entire fortune. And the catch is that Avery has no idea who this man is or why he left it all to her. To receive her inheritance, Avery must move into the secret passage-filled Hawthorne house, where every room bears Tobias's touch and his love for puzzles, riddles, and things like that. The problem is that the Hawthorne house is also occupied by Tobias's family, who just got dispossessed, and that includes 4 of his grandsons. And his one grandson, Grayson, thinks that Avery is a con woman and is determined to take her down. But this just sounds like such a cool mystery. Like, not only does Avery not know this man or any of these people, and she's kind of just thrust into this weird house with strangers, but the whole family doesn't trust her because they don't know her either. And the house itself is just a mystery because you have this house filled with secret passages and puzzles and riddles and codes and all of these things for them all to figure out, and that sounds amazing. I love creative houses and things like that. It reminds me kind of like an escape room, except she still has to live there, so she's not really escaping, but there's so many things for them to figure out. And I love the idea of there being 4 grandsons who just basically lost the inheritance they thought they were going to get. And the one that really dislikes her, I'm assuming, is the love interest, but I have no idea. And if he is the love interest, I'm totally here for it. You guys know enemies to lovers is my absolute favorite romance trope. So I'm very excited to learn more about it. I feel like this series is so interesting, and I think it'll be really intricate and beautifully written, so I cannot wait. And then last but not least, one of the last top books on my wish list is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. And this is once again another Steph Bower recommendation. And also I just read Corrupt by Penelope Douglas last month, so that was in my May wrap up if you would like to hear my thoughts. But I actually really, really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad because I've heard really great things about her books, and this is one that I keep hearing about and I really hope to get my hands on. All I know about this book is that in 5th grade, our main characters became pen pals and they wrote to each other for the next 7 years with 3 rules. No social media, no phone numbers, and no pictures. Oh, their names are Misha and Ryan, by the way. So Misha is the guy, Ryan is the girl, and that's why they got paired up as pen pals, is because Ryan's teacher thought Misha was a girl like Ryan, and then Misha's teacher thought Ryan was a boy like Misha. So that's how that all ended up working out. And one day, Misha finds this girl online who fits Ryan's description perfectly, and he is determined to end up meeting her, but he ends up hating who he finds. This book just sounds like kind of a mess, but in the best way possible. You have these 2 people who probably know so much about each other because they've been pen pals for 7 years, and then he ends up meeting her in person and hating who she is, and she has no idea that they've really met. and he stopped writing to her and she doesn't know why, so she's wondering if he's okay. And that just sounds so interesting that it's like enemies to lovers, but then also like friends to lovers because they were kind of friends first. So it just sounds really complicated and messy and emotional and everything I love in romances. So this is what I'm really looking forward to as well. And like I said before, I trust Steph's recommendations and I just can't wait to get this one as well. So that is the end of my book wish list video. Please let me know what books are at the top of your wish list. I would love to talk to you guys about them. And if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you do subscribe, please click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. But thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.